Hey up and welcome to another episode of Last Cast. Today you join us on the River Calder just for a few hours after work. Already been fishing for probably about sort of 3 hours now, something like that. And we've got quite a few fish lined up in front of us. It's taken probably half an hour or so to get them going, but we've ended up catching a couple to start with, and then as the light started to fade a bit, we start catching really consistently and getting a few bites. So basically it's a very simple session today. We're fishing just beneath the weir, probably 2 pegs down from the weir. We've got flow on the far bank, so there's a bit of a channel over there. So I've had a really good plumb around at the start, as you've always got to do on the river, and I found that it gradually slopes away from me, and then there's sort of a nice channel about 3/4 of the way across where it's nice and level. So I've had a good plumb around there, and crucially I've picked an area, which is something that I'll cover now because it's worth mentioning, is how I'm fishing the peg. Basically I've set myself up bang in line with a far bank mark, so I'm aiming myself, as you can see, on the box downstream, so it's nice and comfortable. Dead in front of me is where I'm going to be loose feeding the bait, and then the area where I'm catching is probably about 20 odd yards downstream from that, and that's right under a tree where there's a nice shadow. Again, something I've mentioned before when we're fishing rivers, making sure that where the sort of the killing zone, if you like, is nice and shaded so you can see the float nice and easily. So the rig that I'm fishing is dead simple. I've set up a couple of rods today, but this is the one that I'm catching on. I've set up a stick float to fish on the inside of the feed, but as it turns out there's a lot of minnows there where it's a bit slower, so I've caught most of my fish today on the waggler, fishing pretty much in the feed or just slightly past it. So the hardware that we've got today is pretty simple. It's a standard 13-foot nice and light waggler rod, 3000 size Daiwa reel and a 4-pound main line. Rig wise, I've just got a 5BB straight waggler on there. The reason for a straight waggler was originally the light was very dappled, so it was much easier to see a bigger bristle on it, and also I'm dragging probably about 4 inches of line on the bottom. I'm trying to target some better roach today rather than the dace and small fish, so that's why I've gone for, like I say, a nice thick top float, nice and visible, but also because there's a bit of pace on the water as well, I can drag a bit of line without it going under. Shotting wise, I've had a bit of a play around with it today. I started off with a bulk of 3 number 9s down the line and 3 number 10 droppers, but as it turns out, to get some more positive bites and get the bait down quickly in the peg, because like I say, the fish are coming right up to the top of the peg now, is I've actually got 7 number 9s as a bulk halfway down, and then 2 number 10s and 2 number 10s above the hook length. I've just got a 10-inch hook length of 012 fluorocarbon and a size 18 B911, as you can see on there. I'm just fishing double caster as the hook bait. That's sorted out the roach and the better fish. Initially I started on the 20s with a single maggot just to see what was down there, and as it's turned out I've started catching a couple of minnows and a few small fish, so I've upped the hook size and gone to double caster, and straight away we've started getting some better roach, so we'll get it chucked out there and see if we can catch one. In terms of the bait for today, I've brought some maggots, as I said, for the hook, a few pinkies as well, but my feed and my hook baits pretty much is hemp and casters. I've had a go on the tear as well, where I've had a couple of bites, but they've been very finicky. So I've brought probably 2.5 pints of casters and about the same of hemp. And I've already fed probably about a pint or so of hemp and about the same of casters. It's an indication straight away, and the float's just had a bite there, right where I was saying about sort of the killing zone under that tree. Again, there are quite a few small fish in the river at the moment, especially at this time of year. Quite a few small dace and a few minnows, so we will miss bites quite regularly off those. But like I've mentioned, by fishing double caster, it's just a bit more selective. So I've also had the bomb set up as well, and I've had one perch about sort of 6 ounce on that, but again I thought I'll set it up just in case it turns out there's 1 or 2 chub, or I'm getting properly sort of bitted out on that line. It's another indication there. And I've had a chuck around, and like I say, I've just had 1 perch, getting the odd little rattle on it, but again, plenty more bites on the waggler, so that's what I'm going to focus on now for the last couple of hours. Another bite and we've got a fish on. Again, one of the other reasons why I've opted to fish a waggler, despite it being quite a narrow peg where I can get pretty far across with a decent sized stick float. It's a nice stamp roach. As I was saying, I did set up a stick float rod and I can get quite far across with it, but the issue being we've had a bit of a downstream wind, and whenever you've got a downstream wind in the peg, that's where it's much better to fish a waggler. You just get much better control, much better presentation. So that roach took that double caster bait well down. So in terms of the quantities I've been feeding today, to start with I was feeding sort of half a pouch of hemp and probably 15 or 20 casters. Whereas as the fishing's improved, I've started to put in a lot more bait, so I'm pretty much filling the pouch every time with casters, and about the same with the hemp seed. As you can see, I'm casting just downstream to where my marker is, where I'm putting the feed in. Nice big pouch of casters. And a decent pinch of hemp as well. As soon as I've baited the peg for the run down, that's when I'll check the line and just let it run. As you can see, the wind's picked up now, and that's the downstream wind I was talking about. So on the run down, I'm having to check the line a couple of times, but the important thing, what I've done with the shotting, because there's quite a few fish in the peg, that's why I've put a decent bulk at half depth. And it means that as soon as I've cast out, I can check the line, pull the float back into the feed, and it sets really quickly then. So I can see there's a bit of black showing on the float until those 6 or 7 number 9s settle. And then once those are down, know the bait's getting near the bottom. And I'm running to the bottom end of the peg, but most of the bites have come in exactly the same area where the loose feed's hitting the deck. As I say, that's a really important thing when you're fishing on the river, is to make sure you work out before you start fishing where you intend to catch the fish. So that's why I've set myself, like I say, with a far bank marker, looking down the peg as to where I'm going to put the float in and feed. And then downstream from that, where I know that the light's really good and the bottom's clear, so I've had a really good plumb around that area where I expect to catch them. That's where I'm getting the bites now. And quite surprising with the amount of feed that I've been putting in that we've not had any chubbers yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if we did encounter them a bit later on. It's the same again, a good pouch of casters and a good pouch of hemp, and then just draw the float back in and get the float running down the peg. There we go, that's a bite again. I've had a couple of days so far, but mainly roach. Especially by fishing double caster, they're all a good stamp. As you can see, catching fish like that, it won't take long to build a weight. And it's quite clear as well, the fish are in immaculate condition as well this time of the year. Lovely colours on them with the clear water that we've got. And that's one of the other reasons as well why I've decided to go down the hemp and caster route. Again, if there was a bit more colour on the water, that's when I'd sort of lean more towards fishing the maggot. I think the fish can just pick it out that bit better, but when it's low and clear like this, and roach are the main target, you can't really beat fishing hemp and casters. So you can also see, because I'm sort of working the peg to quite a short run, because that's where I'm getting the bites, I am feeding quite regularly, so it's not sort of your norm on the Calder, fishing and feeding this aggressively. But certainly when there's a lot of the small fish in the peg, like the dace and the minnows, I'm expecting them to eat quite a lot of the casters and the hemp. So I want to make sure there's plenty of bait going in so we can target the better fish. And again as well, with putting a decent amount of feed in, obviously it's naturally going to spread out quite a bit. We've got another fish on now. So it means that, especially with a waggler, I can sort of pick fish off from around the feed area. Again, that's one of the other reasons why I set up the stick float. was just in case the fish was sat on the near side of the feed, but as I mentioned, with the water being a bit slower there, I think that's why the minnows are sort of holding up. I've had a couple of roach down sort of on the near side of the feed, but the bulk of them, as I say, have been either in the feed or just past it. So by setting up the 2 rods, I've got options to cover the entire area of the peg where I intend to catch. Again, with the nature of the peg as well, I've not put in a second line because it's quite narrow. And as I say, I just want to target and concentrate on that one area of the peg. See, when I check the line, the float pops up nicely, resettles, and then I can tell immediately when that bulk's got down. Again, getting indications every single run down as well, which is good. So at 1 or 2 points when bites have gone a little bit iffy on the caster, that's when I've switched back to double maggot or single maggot. Just missed that bite. And that's meant that I've been able to pick off a couple of other fish as well, so that's what I've had the dace on pretty much, is on the double maggot. So I say, despite fishing just one line, I've got lots of different options to play around with to try and work out how to catch the fish. Obviously, when you're setting float rigs up, especially waggler rigs on rivers like this, it's really important to have all those shot down the line, all your dust shot number 9s and 10s. So it's made a massive difference to being able to change the shotting pattern round. If I was fishing with a stringer shot and fishing on the drop, that's when I'll start getting mithered by small dace, minnows and things like that, but having a nice big bulk and 2 decent positive droppers means I can get the bait down to the bottom where the feeding or the quality fish are. There we go, we've hooked a better fish now. Straight away after the feed. Again, that float just settled, the bulk went down, and straight away something is nailed, double caster hook bait. Looks like a nice big roach, this. Again, lovely stamp fish that. As you can see, proper quality on it. Really fat fish, that one, and he's taking the bait well down. Just shows the importance of assessing the peg, working your way into it, and then when it looks like there's plenty of fish there, just chancing your hand at being aggressive with the feed and with the hook baits that you choose. I'll say on some of the tougher sections of the Calder, if you fed like this, you'd blow your peg straight away. But again, that's why I started off feeding fairly light and just sort of easing my way into the session. And it's incredibly important just to make sure that you're pretty much just feeding to bites, trying to work out what's going on in the peg, what sort of fish are present, and what you can get away with feeding. It's a nice slow bite that time, we've missed it. I'll say if I was to take a more negative approach on this peg, possibly later on in the year, that's when I go to fishing an insert waggler and sort of feeding 20-30 grains of hemp and 10 or 15 maggots every run down. It's amazing as the sessions sort of come on a bit, how much further up the peg the fish are coming now to the feed. I'll say that last roach, pretty much right where the feed's landing, sort of the bottom end of it. So that's telling you that the fish are getting more confident and feeding more aggressively. And that one's just nipped the end of the caster slightly. So again, that could be the small dace or minnows. Now, I certainly think if there were a few more chub present, that's when I'd look at fishing something like a specie waggler on here and keeping the same sort of amount of feed, but fishing baits like sort of 3 or 4 maggots or triple caster. But as I say, I've used the bomb and the worm setup just to have a sort of work around the peg just to see if there were any there. And as it turns out, there's none present in the peg, so again, that's why I've just gone straight back onto the waggler and started plugging away. I think the other thing as well, with fishing a decent sized bulk like this, it just helps when you're checking the float. I think it keeps it sort of more on the same line rather than just pulling against the weight of the float. The bulk will sort of bring it back to where it needs to be as it's running down the peg. Another bite there that we've missed. So you can already see how we've got the fish into a bit of a frenzy. So what I'm going to do now, because I've missed a few bites on the caster, I'm just going to try double red maggot on the hook. As I say earlier in the session, I've done that a couple of times and end up with a couple of days, and it's just sort of meant there's a bit of a change bait going through the peg, sort of more of a target hook bait, if you like, for the fish. And occasionally it's just meant I've got a cleaner bite and connected with the fish a bit better. And obviously with maggots, you're not masking the hook point quite as much as you are with double caster. It means as well, if you do miss a bite, you can get away with checking the line and then running the float back down again. You've still got half a chance of having an acceptable hook bait on. So this cast I'm just trying a bit further across, and there we go, we've got one on the double maggot. And that's why it always pays to have a change of hook bait for options. So we've missed probably 4 or 5 bites on the caster there, switched to double maggot and straight away we've hooked one. Again, another lovely quality Calder roach that. So I think after that one we'll try my double maggot again. As I say, if the bites go funny on double maggot, I can just come straight back onto the double caster. So as you can see, it's a fairly simple process, just rinse and repeat. Keep the bait going in, and once you've sussed out how the fish are feeding in terms of your presentation, it's just then a case of varying up the hook baits and where you're picking them off from around the peg. Missed a bite there on the maggot. And the only issue with fishing the maggot on the hook is, as I say, it's particularly appealing to the minnows, so again, some of those missed bites could well be off the minnows that are in the peg. Again, we've just missed a bite there, really sharp bite. Didn't feel like I bumped a fish, so I'm just going to continue to run the float down the peg. Again, if I'd missed that bite on the double caster, I'd have to bring the rig in and check the bait, but as I say, because we're fishing double maggot, it's just a bit more durable. So just running the float down now, right to the bottom end of the peg. It doesn't seem like there's anything down there. As I say, all the fish now are pretty much lined up in the same area. So if I'm not getting bites on double maggot right at the bottom end of the peg, I think once it's gone through the killing zone, if you like, I'm just going to bring the float back in and reset it and just keep running it over that same area where the fish seem to be shoaled up. Every so often it's worth running it through to the back end of the peg, because occasionally you can get a bigger fish like a chub down there, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen today. So you're getting a lot more indications on the double maggot. And there we go, we've got a fish on. Just net this one. Get another quality roach hooked right in the top lip. So I think what we'll do now, we'll carry on, keep switching up between the double maggot and double caster, and see if we can put a few more quality fish in the net. Right, so we've missed a few bites on the caster, probably 4 or 5 in a row. And once again, we've just switched double maggot on the hook, and we've just had 3 fish in a row. Amazing how much of a difference it can make just to make that quick switch. As I say, I'll put a couple more fish on the hook straight away, get another one of these stamp roach. So again, we'll look to try and catch a couple more fish on the maggot before we switch back to the caster. And it just seems to be that fishing double caster just picks out a slightly better stamp of fish. So again, really filling the pouch full of casters now. As you can tell, we're starting to lose the light a little bit more, so if there's any sort of chance of catching a bonus fish, just missed that bite. As I say, if there's any chance of catching a bonus fish, it'll be as we get into sort of the last hour of light, so I don't think there's any harm in really sort of pushing the peg now and fishing really positive. I'm just getting plenty of bait piled in. And so that float's just getting towards the area where we're getting the bites now. There's a bite straight away. As I say, with the maggot though, it could be a case that there's a few small fish present, like I say, like the dace and the minnows. Just double checking the shot in there. Might have been a better fish actually, that maggot's run damaged. As well, with the light conditions dropping as well, as opposed to fishing double red, I've put a fluoro maggot on. Again, hopefully it's just something the fish can pick out a little bit quicker. And there's a fish on now. Again, not a massive fish. Certainly one of the smaller stamp actually today, this. Probably the smallest roach of the session so far, only about an ounce, so that one. So I think we'll go back onto the double caster now. And when I'm fishing the double caster, especially on a session like this, I tend to, rather than putting two casters of the same sort of colour on where they're both equally dark, especially when I'm trying to get the bait down a little bit quicker, I'll put a paler caster on. And I think not only does it offer a little bit of contrast with the colour, but I think it also helps to get the bait down rather than having two of the more sort of buoyant casters that are much darker, because I'm trying to get through the small fish. I think it can make a bit of a difference just putting on those slightly paler casters. It just helps them to get back down a bit quicker. There we go, straight away on the double caster. It feels like a slightly better stamped fish. Just about swingable, that one. Again, that's the sort of difference between switching from double maggot to the double caster. It's a fish at least twice the size there, and lovely quality roach. Right, so there we go, we've hooked another fish now. I think because we're losing the light and we've got to the end of a sort of 4.5 hour session, I think we'll call this the last one of the day. It's been really interesting catching these roach and the odd dace. Like I said, we've had to mix it up between the maggot and the caster on the hook, but we've ended up catching a lovely stamp of fish, you can see, really nice quality on them. And hopefully it's given you a few ideas as to how to go about waggler fishing on the Calder and rivers similar to it. So we'll get this one popped in the net and then we'll have a quick look at what we've caught. Right, so there's our final net of fish. Quite a respectable little bag for a few hours fishing. Some nice roach in there. As you can see, there's one perch, a couple of little dace. But there's been a lovely stamp of roach to be caught on the double caster today on the waggler. As you can see, lovely plump fish like that. So hopefully the tips that we've gone through today, it's been a nice simple session, as I say, on the waggler. Hopefully there's one or two things in there that you can apply to fishing on a sort of smallish river like this. Fishing double caster, double maggot, and just loose feeding, you know, bit of bait. Nice simple session. So yeah, as I say, it's a lovely bag of fish and we've had a nice little session down here. So we'll get these popped back. And as always from Last Cast, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and we'll see you on that next episode.